Hello, welcome back, viewers and readers of the Erudite Bibliophile with Wonderlust. Thanks for joining us today. We're here with Ellen Baker, who you may remember from one of our chats previously when we talked about her book, The Hidden Life of Cecily Larson. And we're back here today to talk about her new upcoming release coming out June 2nd, Summerland Cove. We're going to hold this up so everyone can see. Isn't she beautiful, everybody? So, welcome back, Ellen. We're glad to have you for your next book here.
Well, thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be back.
Yeah. And I was hoping before we dive into everything, you could maybe give a little teaser since it isn't out yet. So, a lot of people haven't had a chance to kind of look into it, a little teaser about what's waiting for the readers inside the pages of the book here.
Absolutely. So, this is a book set on the coast of Maine surrounding a family cottage that's been in this one family for generations. And my main character, Lindy, has slated three big events, three weekends in a row. She is planning her husband's 50th birthday party, her parents' 50th anniversary party, her daughter's wedding. And the first party, the husband's birthday, the husband does not show up and they don't know what's happened to him. So everything gets torn asunder as they
Yeah,
start looking for him.
that's a great word for it.
And then, family secrets start to come out. There starts to be a lot of um, connection between present and past, and I'm not gonna share how it turns out.
Y'all just stop me if I accidentally ruin anything. But I wanted to first talk about place because it's so central and paramount, obviously, to this novel. I wanted to first kind of talk about Maine and like the fictional Summerlane Cove, and then kind of dive into the family cottage of Innisfree. But first, with the Maine setting, I know it's kind of your adopted home state for like over a decade now, maybe like 16 years, I think I saw. And so you set it there, and it's obvious the setting's deeply personal to you, and you can tell how much you love it, not only in the pages of the book, but then also obviously you look at your social media, the beautiful pictures and videos you have of Maine, especially in the summertime. And you also kind of set it amidst this, summer cottage coastal community and culture. So I didn't know if you could not only talk about your decision to set it, the family saga in Maine, but also if you could talk about like the real life place that's the Saltwater Cove, that's the inspiration behind this fictional Summerland Cove.
Absolutely, yes. So you're right on point saying that this book is place-based because it really was inspired by a particular place. And of course, I have lived here in Mid-Coast, Maine for about 16 years, as you said, and fell in love with it when I moved out here from the Midwest, and I've just been radically in love with it ever since. It just is to me it's magical in every season. And so what happened was I had discovered this cove nearby where I live quite a long time ago, but I didn't go there very often because it was just far enough away that it was like, I was busy and
Yeah.
um, but I happened to just kind of make a change in my own patterns and started going there to take walks. And I started in the winter when, so it's a point as it's described in the novel, and the point is lined with these 100-year-old summer cottages. And in the winter, at least from what I can tell, it's mostly empty. There aren't many people that stay year round. And so I was there first sort of feeling like, there's the ocean crashing against the rocks. There's these romantic cottages. And that place just grabbed my heart. And this was about 3 years ago. So I started going there more often and I started just kind of starting to imagine, as I like to do, as a novelist, like what kind of lives would take place in these houses. And I don't know anyone who lives in this particular neighborhood. So it was easy to just let my imagination go. And so as I continued to go back over the next several months, I kind of just fell more and more in love with this place. And then there was one summer night in particular, and it was July by this time. So the place becomes very populated, and you see the people, they start to arrive around, early May, and more come. And you see, one of the things that fascinated me, just feeling I am an outside observer to this place, even though I live not too far away. But one of the things I noticed was all the license plates from all over the country. And I love that. It's like this gathering place and the sense of families that have held on to these cottages for many generations and that come together from wherever they are, all the generations, and they gather for a week or two, maybe in the summer, if that's all they can get there, or maybe they can stay longer. But I walked by this cottage where a family was having a party and three generations. And I just like that was it. The moment I was like, because I knew the place was empty most of the year. I saw all the cars from the various states. I saw the generations of family gathered. And I just from there was like, yep, that's it. That's the story. So it really is based on that place and the particular uh, features of that place being, that people aren't there all the time. They love it with their whole hearts, I think, because how could you not? But it comes with all these complications because of the generations that co-own the cottages
Yeah.
and also the difficulty of getting there and the distance that's built in with the life. So one of the things that I kind of explored in the novel was just this feeling of like, first, in that situation, as I imagine it, you want your time there to be perfect and you expect it will be, but then you bring all your stuff with you, like, and especially when you're meeting with many generations of your family and there are all these big events. So like this expectation of this sublime place and this beautiful, perfect Maine in July and August, like the weather is usually just perfect. And like you have these beautiful nights that are just um, again, kind of grab your heart and make you think you're in heaven. But then you've got all your baggage with you, and you've
The
got,
literal and figurative
yes. So
that
I
comes
thought,
through even when
exactly. So I thought that was a good place to start the novel from.
yeah, perfect. That was your aha moment, it sounds like.
It was, yes.
Well, and then even more specifically, central to the place is the cottage, and it's called Innisfree. And it sounds like it was based on this Yeats poem, which I don't. Do you have your copy with you that you could read that little part? I
Sure.
was hoping you could read that part just because I had never heard that poem before. And usually when the house is like this, these big houses are so central to the book and they influence the characters, it's usually like gothic novels, but like in this case, completely not that, but you can't deny how crucial the presence of Innisfree is on the characters and all the walls, all they have seen and all they've heard, from the good, the bad, the ugly. I know in some parts you said, it can be a safe haven, but it could also be trapping you. You can love it, but you can hate it. This dichotomy and the duality of it. So I was hoping maybe you could read that little blurb that starts out the book that talks about Innisfree, and then kind of talk about how you came about that, how you came to name it that. Because I know a lot of summer cottages have names, and you always kind of wonder when you see these names, how did they come up with them, or what's the stories behind them? So if you could do that, that'd be great.
Of course. So I'll read the poem
Yeah.
first. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade, and I shall have some peace there. And that's from the poem The Lake Isle of Innisfree by W.B. Yeats. So, so the story behind me kind of starting the novel with that poem, which I did know before I wrote a word of the novel, that was going to be the name of the cottage, and I
You did or
knew
did not?
I did,
You
yeah,
did. Okay.
yeah. Um, and that poem is one of the first poems in one of my favorite books of poetry that my grandma gave me her copy. It's called Modern Book of American Poetry, and it's this thick little book that was published sometime in the 1960s. And she had underlined lines in it. And so it always made me feel connected to her and wonder what she felt about that poem. And so when I was walking out at the point, I actually kind of remembered that there was a cottage called Innisfree out there. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. Well, then I realized much later as I went back and visited again, the cottage is not named Innisfree out there. It's named Finisterre, which is, like end of land. Um, but for me, it's Innisfree. Those two things combined in my brain, which I think happens a lot when you're creating something. Like you'll take something that you remember from a really, really, really long time ago, and you'll think it's real, or you'll pull something from,
Right.
so that's
You're
where
like,
that.
I could have sworn that cottage was Innisfree and it wasn't the whole time. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But so I loved, having that connection to my grandmother because it is such an important connection that the grandmother in the book has to the cottage where it's actually her family's
Yeah.
cottage that she came to as a little girl, and she's the one who should have the closest relationship with it, but she actually has a very complicated relationship with the house and has always sort of wished she didn't have it anymore. But her daughter and her husband really love it, so she hasn't been able to bring herself to part with it. Um, so I loved kind of having that sense, and I don't go, if I had more space in the book, I would have loved to go back and talk about the grandmother Greta's family. But I think there's just one chapter where I talk about like her brothers and what she remembers from before World War II when her brothers went off and most of them were killed in the war. And like I love, if, from having read The Hidden Life of Cecily Larson, I love those like
Yeah.
long past connections and how they affect our lives today and bringing those in for a character. So for her, there's, as you say, like it's all the stories that the house holds. And then I loved also like playing with the younger characters' point of view where they have no idea about most of it. And they're just like, yeah, this is our family's cottage. It's cool,
Right.
like, and they don't really understand like the whole connection to the past. They have a sense of it, and I think as they grow older, they'll develop more. But it's kind of fun to play with those different generations. I have the three narrators,
Mhm.
Greta, the grandmother, who's 81, Lindy, the middle generation, who's 48, and then Haley, who's supposed to be the bride, and
Yeah.
she's 25, and then her siblings. So.
And then speaking of Greta, I loved the central kind of theme with music in the book, the tie-in with music kind of that you threaded throughout the book. Not only with Greta, who's a very accomplished pianist, and that is kind of her background, but then also she kind of infuses music into her family with dancing to records with her husband, and lessons with Lindy on the piano. And then you even named like the three parts of the book after specific songs, and
I
then
did.
created like a Spotify playlist for the reader that has those three songs, but also additional songs because the tie in with music to the book. So I didn't know if you could talk about like how did you pick the songs, especially the ones for the titles, and then like the importance of threading music and tying music in throughout the book.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, music is always an important piece of kind of an undercurrent of a person's mind. And the songs that resonate for them, I think, tell a lot about the person. It also is a great window into a time period. So where I'm writing about the 1970s and, the LP in the front room where they put the
Right.
records on and they're dancing and drinking their martinis. Like it helps like bring the period to life too.
Yeah.
So for all of those reasons, I find music to be just essential to weave into the story. I also wanted for Greta to have a bit of a career before she um, married and had Lindy, her only daughter. And for the time period that she had grown up in, I thought that was a somewhat realistic, but yet a bit unique at the
Yeah.
same time, where she is a touring concert pianist and she had grown up in New York and studied at some of the finest music schools, and she traveled as a classical pianist. And I just thought for her to have that kind of a background, so in a bit of a way, that's why a small house doesn't quite contain her. Like she wants to be bigger than that, and she struggles like all her life of like the the pull of family versus the pull of what she wants to do. So for her, the music was always a thing, and it also gave me an interesting thing to have Greta and her daughter Lindy struggle over because Greta, of course, wants Lindy as a girl to play the piano, which Lindy dutifully does, but she kind of hates it. And so there's all the details in the book about how much she's required to practice, and when they're in New York, it's this much, and when she's at Innisfree, it's this much. So Innisfree is more freedom for Lindy because she doesn't have to practice the piano quite as much. So, and then as events go on, like their relationship changes, and you can tell based on the relationship to the music and the piano. So layering all that stuff in, I think was important for me for the story. It's like another way to show the relationships evolving. It's another way to show time evolving, and it's another way to just add depth to the story. Because what I love as a reader is when you see the name of a song title, you get it in your head, so you get a little bit of a soundtrack going. And that's why it was really fun to create that Spotify playlist. Um, and the song titles I chose for each part are really indicative of the mood of that part. And I have no idea how I ran across the first one, which is Even in the Quietest Moments by Supertramp, because honestly, I had not ever heard that song before I started researching this book. And and I came across it probably just in doing some YouTube listening here and there, and it came up, and when I got familiar with the lyrics, it was just so perfect for what happens in the first part of the novel. So I had to use that. And I couldn't believe I hadn't heard it. I've heard other Supertramp songs, and I like music from the 70s. I'm not like a super fan, so like I said, I hadn't known that song, but it was just perfect for the book. And then the second part is Big Girls Don't Cry, and that's a 2010 song, or it was out by 2010 anyway. And that one fit also the time the what was going on in the book as well as the 2010 storyline, which is the contemporary storyline in the book. And then the last one is Brand New Key by Melanie. And that one I've known all my life. Like my parents had that on a record. So I would put that on an LP when I was a kid. I loved it. About I've got a brand new pair of roller skates. You've got a brand new
Cool.
key. Yeah, yeah. It's so fun. And it's the one that Greta chooses to celebrate music coming back into her life. So so that one was like the perfect one for that.
And so, do you, when you decide what time period you're going to do, set your novels in and whatnot, do you put on kind of in the background while you're like researching and writing like music of that time period? Or how do you, when you're crafting the book, how do you incorporate it to help influence so that these can be the songs that pop on the page?
Yeah, so not really while I'm writing because I don't focus too well if I have music going on, but I definitely did some, searching and listening at other times as part of the research that I did for the book. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so when readers go to the Spotify playlist, they can see those three songs and then some additional songs that are kind of like mentioned throughout the book. So don't
Yeah.
readers, I encourage you, I invite you to go search for that on Spotify, as well as also definitely go to Ellen's Insta because she also has videos and pictures of the place that inspired the Summerland Cove in the book. So those are some inside things that book clubs and things can do. But I also wanted to talk about there was on one of your social media posts, I think I saw a quote where someone described the book as like a beach read with teeth. And I loved that because I was like, yeah, like it, like you said, it's summer's coming up. You love summer in Maine. It's got all that, but then it's got meat to it. Like that you address some very complex, deep, hard, difficult topics in the book that families have to deal with, specifically Alzheimer's and the diagnosis, how it affects end of life care and how it affects families and caregivers. And then you also tackled mental health and illness, specifically severe depression. So I didn't know if you could talk about your choice to kind of dive into those topics and how you approach them within the story and with the characters.
Yeah. So a lot of it was just like I wanted the story to have a lot of drama in it. And as I kind of, the first thing I do when I start to think about what the novel is going to be about, obviously I started in this case with the place. And then I always make a family tree and decide who the members of the family are, how old they are, what year they were born. And from there, okay, then what was happening in their childhood, what was happening, so all of the time details are actually really important to me in terms of like deciding who the characters are going to be and then where they grew up. So like Lindy grew up in New York City with her parents. Her father's a professor, her mother's a pianist. So even from those little details, you start to see like what kind of person she could be or probably is. David grew up in Chicago, and that's Lindy's husband. And his parents bought their cottage at Summerland Cove in the 1970s. And I actually know a lot of people here in Midcoast, Maine who are from Chicago, and it's just close enough where you can
Yeah.
drive out for the summer at least. It's not an easy drive, but you can make it. So because I have deep Midwestern roots, I wanted at least part of the people to be from the Midwest so that I understood them,
Right.
really, really well. So I made his family be from the Midwest, and they would come every summer. So really, once I know those facts about the families, then I can start to think about what I want to have happen in the story. I knew right away that it was going to be these three parties. I knew it was going to be David vanishing before his party. Um, so I had to figure out why. And I had to figure out what was going on with everybody. And I wanted each generation to have something going on. So Greta is dealing with her husband who has recently been diagnosed with dementia and that she hasn't told her family yet and she's trying to like keep it hidden up through the wedding. And like what a nightmare. Like it's terrible. Because sometimes he'll have good moments and other times it's not. And she's really like trying to hold it all together. Um, and then Lindy, of course, dealing with her husband vanishing and reflecting back on when they were young, and he had issues with depression, which makes her worry now. Like, what if it's come back and she wasn't paying attention? And I think, that's a very midlife thing of like, you've been married a long time, like, how close attention are you paying to your
Right.
spouse? Like, you've got a lot going on. And so she starts to reflect back on their younger days, and um, so really just created it out of the wish to have lots of layers in the story, and a lot going on for the characters. Again, that idea of like you arrive for the summer and it's supposed to be great, and then life has a lot of hard things in it. And I thought I was going to write a beach read, but to me, like life just has stuff in it, like, and so for me, it just was a natural thing to include those things.
You're like, it's a real life beach read. Like
Exactly.
it's not the fantasy Hallmark beach read, it's life beach read. Well, I was
Yeah.
hoping, is the copy you have by you the advanced reader copy?
I put out the finished one, which I only have two of right now, but this is
Oh,
the first
okay.
one. Yeah.
Okay, because I was
Mhm.
gonna have you read something, but it might be on a different page, so I
Oh,
might
I
have
don't
to.
think it's too different. I
Okay,
can go.
okay. It's on page in the advanced reader copy. It's on page 137. And sorry, I don't usually make you read so much from your book, but there were so many parts that I was like, oh my gosh, I love this.
Oh,
Um,
thank
there
you.
was this part where it's when it's talking about how Tom, with his dementia, is forgetting things and losing his memory. And it's talking
Yeah.
about how Greta is having to remember for the both of them. And
Hmm.
we talked a little bit ago about how important music is in the book. And you put this beautiful music metaphor, like utilizing the piano to describe, him losing his memory and her having to remember for the both of them, but described it in this music metaphor way. In my advanced reader copy, it's 137. It's in chapter 20.
Yep. Yep. That's the same.
Oh, is it the
Hmm.
same? And it starts
Yep.
with the first full paragraph. Every memory was a key. And
Yes.
reading all the way down to the beauty of the moment. Yes, if you could read that, that would be amazing.
Sure. You're going to try to make me cry, aren't you?
Oh, that was not my point, but it was just so, like I said, the music was so part of the book. And then the way you wrote that, like, now you're getting me all. Anyway, you go.
All right. Every memory was a key being pressed to hammer a note, forming phrases, movements, the entire sonata of a long life. In Tom, the action was muted now. Perhaps the damper was on. Some hammers were entirely stuck. He could no longer hear the notes of his life. He could no longer appreciate the sonata. It had been written, yet now could not be played. Yes, she was taking the metaphor too far, and yet, pay attention. Was this what her mother had been referring to in the dream? That Greta had to remember for both of them now? That Greta was the only composer, the only artist still at work on the life that had been theirs? Was beauty still accessible if memory was gone? The beauty of the moment, yes. It was as if she heard her mother's voice.
Thank you. I love that
Yeah.
because like it was like the perfect with the music and the tie-in and Greta trying to hold everything together like water through a sieve, like trying feeling like she's having to be now the memory for both of them and finishing this composing the symphony of their lives together that and him not remembering, so um
Yeah.
but I also
Yeah.
wanted to talk about kind of throughout this whole book, David's missing, he's vanished. And it feels like you're, as the reader, you're reading this book and it feels like so much is happening. But then when you're looking at each chapter title, it's like still the same day, or like it's the next day, but like it's literally only over the span of 7 days. Like their
Yeah.
whole lives flip and turn on an axis and completely change. And like you said, it feels like so much has happened, but really it's only 7 days. And David, um, even though the whole book is kind of like looking for him, leading to him, revolving around him, he's not actually there. Even though, like Lindy alludes to in the book, another poem where she alludes to, without him, the sinner does not hold, things fall apart. And so, even though he's not there, everything is leading up to where's David, and he's central to the book. And so the reader is caught in this like suspense and tension, like chapter after chapter, wondering like, okay, is he in an accident? Is he having a midlife crisis and is off having an affair with his assistant? Is he a victim of a crime? Someone's robbed him. So you're, and I won't say where he ends up and what happens. I won't spoil because now I know you don't want to spoil it. So, but my question is, did you always know where he was going to end up or where we were going to find him, or what the result of that question of why didn't he come? He's missing. Where is he? Did you always know the result? And then you had to write backwards of like all the clues and the twists and turns that the reader is like having to take circuitously that are leading them, maybe this. No, these clues are telling us then maybe this. And no, these clues are now telling us, or did you not know when you started writing and were kind of debating through these different ideas and kind of let it take you where you ended up? Or I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. That's a great question. So I actually did know where he was gonna be. And I had a different idea first, and I kind of wrote it all out as a long, like almost like not an outline, but like, and then this happens, and then this
Right.
happens. And then sort of like thought it through and got some feedback, and my editor was one, and my close writing buddy was another who was like, well, let's think about that ending, like where he really is going to end up. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Okay. So we came up with a different ending while it was still like kind of in the proposal form, in terms
Like
of like
really early on.
it
So it wasn't a long
really
time for that. Okay.
exactly, yeah. So yeah, the I did a proposal which I worked on for I want to say like a month, to really flesh out every element of the book without actually writing any scenes. And I find that if I can really flesh out like how this piece is going to connect to this piece, how this piece is going to connect to this piece, that I can then the writing, I don't have it planned out scene by scene, but the writing will kind of flow because I already know everything. Like I know what all those little details and how they tie together and all the little clues that I want and all the little red herrings that I want to
Yeah.
add.
The Easter eggs, the
Um,
red herrings.
Exactly. So I had that all pre-planned, but not, I don't like to do an outline because I find that to be boring, like if I knew too much.
Yeah.
So I like to sort of go day by day and I'll sit down and look at what I've written the day before. And then I'll say, okay, if I'm the reader, where do I want to go next? What do I want to know? And as the writer, what do I want the reader not to know so that they'll want to keep going? And so every day I would just assess, okay, what's next? And then I would write that. And so that was how it all unfolded. So I did have the ideas all set, but not an outline, and then just kind of let it roll out from there.
I like the way you said it, like, because you're like, then you don't feel like your mind would flow as freely or go wherever or come up with something new or go outside the box because of this being more restricted and then
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that's just me really. Like I used to really like to write without planning anything. And I found that that way was a way to waste years of time. Not waste, but I would, I would write like 1,000 pages that didn't make it in the book. Um,
Oh, right.
Literally. And so I was like, I've got to figure out different ways. So I figured out this way where I can plan just enough so
Right.
that I think through all the details of the story and know what's going to happen enough that then I can kind of then let the rest of it flow in the way that I like it to.
Well, and then a lot of the book revolves around these themes of like you think you're on the right path, you think everything's under control, you've got it all held together, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden everything can implode and change. But then this different path or the result could actually be better than what your best laid plans were. And that second chances exist and everyone is just trying their best, and so I didn't know if like that was the takeaway you wanted the reader to have from the book, or if that was if or like what did you want the reader to ultimately walk away with thinking, what their thoughts remaining of the book or take away from the book.
Um, I think one of the things that I like to think about when I create my characters and my relationships is just how much every single person changes the story. And if you remove one person who's part of the group, everything changes. And I think that's one thing I would like people to take away is like this knowledge of like how much we affect other people without us really realizing it, and how important we are. I think we're in a moment now where most people feel isolated and most people feel lonely. And um, this is a book about connection. And David is a person who feels very isolated, even though he has a family and he has a big family. And but in his mind, he's isolated. And until he goes missing, it's not clear to him and even to some of his family how important he is because he's quiet and they're busy and
Yeah.
but then once he's gone, everything changes. And I just think it's important to remember the effect that we have on others and to try to be a force for good in life, with the choices we make, the things we say, the decisions that we make that affect other people. So that's part of it. And then part of it is just, I hope that people enjoy the story, and I hope it's kind of a heartwarming story in the end because it is about having hope when all hope seems lost.
Yeah, you despite the chaos and the messiness of families and relationships and love is, their love is there,
Right.
and
Yeah,
of course too, like this is also your little love letter to Maine as well.
it is. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, and I was hoping too you could talk a little bit more about your writing process and crafting the story in the book, because I loved when I read something where you were talking about how, you wanted to create this, idyllic setting where these people are coming to Maine for these wonderful, like it's going to be as Lindy thinks, the summer of a lifetime, with this 50th birthday, 50th anniversary, wedding, like you said, the best laid plans, it's supposed to be, summer of a lifetime idyllic. And then you're like, but as a novelist, that's when I come in and think, how can things go wrong? And
Yes.
you also said something like, how can I make this like a stew of a mess? So,
Mhm.
kind of talking about that a little bit about, creating this, and then how can I pick it and pull it apart or whatnot? How can I pull the string so it all tumbles down?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that was definitely the question I started with once I saw that idyllic setting and, felt all the inspiration that I felt, then it was instantly like, okay, well, there's got to be some drama going on in this family, right?
You're
So
like, here I come along and think,
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, so that for me, because I always have written family dramas, like that's kind of what I gravitate toward. And and a lot of stuff about family secrets a lot of the time. And I just love doing that. I mean, it's just sort of fun for me to play with multiple perspectives and who knows what when, and what it affects when someone doesn't know, what it affects when they learn something they didn't know before about someone they thought they were close to. I just think it has endless potential for drama. And so to be able to give each character layers, just like we all as human beings have all these layers to us, I just try to make my characters as real as possible. And then I just let them be and do what they will do based on who they are. And that I think is what makes fiction feel real is when you really, and I also, I always think this is normal, but I actually don't know if all writers do this, but I really see the action playing out in my mind as if it's a movie. So I'm just kind of writing down what happens. I don't feel as if I'm creating it. I feel like it's already happening.
like you're the witness to the story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then if I want to get really into it, and I might try to put my own point of view inside the character's body. You know how like when you're dreaming, sometimes you're in your body looking out
Yeah,
of your own eyes, and other times you're seeing yourself
right.
watching yourself. So
Yeah.
same thing for me. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I really need to get into what Lindy is feeling in this moment. So let me just kind of imagine being in her body and what is she wearing? What is she feeling? What is she seeing? And that can really help you connect with the character more too, because you might notice like, oh, I didn't notice she had this bracelet that she wears all the time, or I didn't put that in, but it could easily be something like that where you kind of get a different insight. So
All the
that's
little
part of
that make them so real.
exactly,
Because
yeah.
even though you
So
kind of fleshed out like, three of the characters become more prominent, more like the main storytellers and main narratives, there was actually so much detail even in the other characters that, I mean, you really felt like you knew them too and could picture them too and kind of knew their stories. And it kind of lets everybody find something to identify with, because whoever the reader, there's so much
yeah.
you can pull from, or a secret or a story that you can pull from or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted all the characters to be unique enough to tell them apart. For one thing, when you have a lot of characters in a big family, you've got to make them distinct. But I did have fun with some of the little details, like the Haley's younger siblings, the twins, are kind of
Yeah.
especially the sister is kind of a troublemaker, and she has such good lines. She's really like says zingers all the time.
Yeah.
And so really just trying to make each character have their own reality. And I think um, picturing them as if, watching the action unfold, that really helps me do that. Because if I see them physically, then I can really start to understand what they would say and what they would do. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like that character you mentioned, her girlfriend provided some levity in the situations with her
Yes.
clairvoyance and being like, I see he's at a lighthouse and
Yes.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, it's very diverse. And then also kind of more nuts and bolts of your writing process. I loved how on your social media you talked about after your main editor has, edited and ran through it twice, and then the copy editor has run through it. Then you talked about reading it aloud. I'm assuming the whole book, because it
Mhm.
sounds like. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
hoping you could talk a little bit more about that, because I'm curious as to what, as opposed to, I know different things they always recommend, like read it out loud, because you're going to hear things with flow or with different dialogue or things that you won't be able to see written. So that was curious. And then you also posted pics of, it looked like very detailed notes. I don't know if they were all from the copy editor, but like all these things on capitalization and names and places and character outlines. Like it was just so interesting to see kind of behind the scenes of the nuts and bolts and more of the post writing process, all of that, that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of steps to it for sure. And what you're referring to is the notes you get from the copy editor, which are, it's usually like 8 to 10 pages of lists of like terms you've used and names you've used so that they can check and make sure you've spelled things consistently. For example, so like Haley, I spelled with a Hailey. And I'm usually pretty good at details like that, but they're checking everything to make sure I didn't misspell a
Right.
name or a place, or so the consistency, they check that, they check place names, they check everything. There was one funny thing. So I have a scene at a rest stop in Maine, which is a real place. It's when you're driving up from Boston and you're on I-95, you can stop at they have a special name for them. I still forget after being here in Maine. I think of them as rest areas. I think
Yeah.
that's what we call them in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Maybe it's anyway, you know what I mean. So I had put that they stop at Starbucks there, and the copy editor flagged that and said there's no Starbucks there. And I said, I know, but there used to be one in 2010 because I used to always stop there and get my chai latte, and it's not there anymore, and it makes me so mad. But I can swear to you, it was there
But
in
the
20.
fact that they literally to
In
that
fact,
degree, like, thought, I'm
yes.
going to fact check to the point of, is there a
Mhm.
Starbucks at the
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like, I mean, it is pivotal storyline, but not like, I mean, if you could substitute a different place, like the fact that they're like to that degree they're checking, and you're like, no, I
Yeah.
know it was there. Like,
Well, I love that and I appreciate it so much
I don't know how
because
they do that. Like, I don't know how to that
yeah,
degree that they're looking into,
yeah.
but thank gosh there's checks and balances, right?
No, it's amazing because there are so many details, and to me, it's really important that my book feels like it takes place in the real world. Summerland Cove is a fictional place, but it's sort of like connected to the real
Yeah.
world. And so these things like any kind of error that you have like that can certainly kick the reader out of the flow of the story, where they'll be like, "Oh, that's not right,"
Right.
and it's great to have these other folks checking on that, and of course there are still probably going to be an error or two, even after all the people that go through it. But that's, I think, one of the things that people are surprised by in terms of like the process of getting a book to print is how many revisions it goes through and how many edits and how many people take a look.
How many
And
eyes?
and that's one of the things I'm really grateful for about, traditional publishing versus self-publishing, because it is built in that we have that process of many people reviewing it. So it's very helpful.
Was there any other surprising edits or things they found that you were like, oh, I didn't realize that, or oh, I didn't mean to do that, or
Oh my gosh. Probably. I'm trying to think if I can't remember anything else right
well,
now.
and then when you read it aloud after it's been through your eyes, after the after the main editor and then you again, and then the
Mhm.
copy editor and then you again, what kind of things when you're reading aloud have you ended up changing completely or editing because of reading it aloud?
Yeah, in my case, it's usually extra words. I
Oh, okay.
always have extra words. And now when I look at the book, I'm like, if I had had another year to work on this, there's still extra words in there.
Like that
But
you're
it
like, I
can,
could have said this more succinct or something.
yeah, and sometimes it's just like an extra she said that you don't need because it's clear who's talking, or it's usually like, maybe 1 to 2 words a page I'll find that I could get rid of. And I actually really enjoy that level of detail because it's really fun to get to the point where you're like super satisfied with the story and the characters feel real. And like, I just absolutely love that process of trying to make the prose as tight and as good as
Yeah.
I can. And again, like this book I did so quickly that I kind of I could go back over it again now, I think. But I'm satisfied with it. But it is something you could continue to fuss with forever,
Yeah.
you know.
Probably always.
Yeah.
Well, and before we go, I wanted you to talk about especially for people who are going to watch this, who live in the area, who could actually be there, but for the rest of us who don't live even close, we can live vicariously through you guys. I wanted you to talk about your launch party coming up on June
Oh
2nd, because
yeah.
it just looks, I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. Like it looks like it's going to be at this yacht club location, and they're going to serve a menu that's David's original birthday party lunch from the book, and like
Yeah.
signature cocktails. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, we have to talk about that real quick so that if anybody has a chance to go. If not, we'll just have to see the after pictures on your social media or whatnot.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. So it is going to be at the Wiscasset Yacht Club in Wiscasset, Maine, and this is a charming small facility, very fitting to the book, right on the Sheepscot River in Wiscasset. If people are familiar with Maine, it's just such a beautiful setting. And again, if you go to my social media, you'll see pictures. But yeah, we're recreating a local restaurant is recreating the menu from David's birthday party. We're going to recreate the singing of Happy Birthday to David, even though
Oh,
he's not there.
that's hilarious.
Um, I created I and some friends got together and created the signature cocktail the other night, and oh my God, it's so good. The Summerland Secret. Yeah, and we're just gonna have a good time. I'm
Are you
gonna,
allowed to tell us what that cocktail is?
I'm going to have it available on my website.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, is there
Yeah,
a recipe
there's
that you provide?
there's going to be a reader's guide. I should have it up within the next couple of weeks, and it'll have the recipes, all the ones from the birthday party, the Summerland Secret cocktail, and Marjorie Westfield's cookie cake, which is
Oh,
also
yes, the
important in
cookie
the
cake.
yeah. And discussion questions and a Q&A with me, so people can go to my website and grab that very
That's
soon. I
perfect.
think it
Book
should be.
clubs love to be able to like, okay, pull in the different
Yeah.
recipes and the drinks and all of that. So that's perfect. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Cake.
Yeah.
The
So
summer, you said it's called the Summerland. What's the drink?
the
Summer
Summerland Secret.
Secret. Summerland. Oh, definitely all the secrets in this. The Summerland secret, the cookie cake, and then the birthday theme. And then what food from David's birthday menu are you gonna
So it's the Sloppy Joe's recipe, which I called Lindy's Sloppy Joe's. To be honest, it's my mom's recipe. Um,
Oh,
um, and then a pasta salad and a fruit salad. So it's a very simple menu. And I designed it that way for Lindy because I figured like she'd want it to be pretty simple, like, and it's a casual picnic. So that's what it is. And I think for any book club, like it'd be really easy to put it together. And then I ordered a cake. In the book, the cake is ordered from the grocery store and it's all messed up. So
I remember
I
that part. It's like, oh,
like the
yeah.
decor is all wrong.
And it's gonna be like that, right? You're gonna have it look like,
Yes,
oh, that's
we're gonna have. I went in there with the page from the book the other day, and I said I need you guys to make it to look just like it's described here and there. Okay, sure.
I love those details.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. We're gonna show the video trailer for anyone who hasn't seen it,
Oh,
and
it's
that
really good. Yes.
yeah. And I'll do just a very short talk, and we'll sign books,
Yeah.
and it'll just be fun. Yeah.
And because we love independent bookstores, shout out the
Oh
bookstore
yeah, fiction.
that.
You are absolutely right. I need to mention. So the book sales are by Fiction Bookshop in Wiscasset, Maine, and this is a shop that opened about a year ago. She's been open for just a year. She has just the loveliest shop, and it's just a few blocks up the street from the yacht club. Wiscasset is a lovely town, and so we have a restaurant from Wiscasset doing the food. We have Fiction Bookshop doing the books and the yacht club supporting us as well. I'm actually a member along with my partner. We're members of the yacht club, so we're very grateful to them for allowing us to host us there. It's going to be the perfect setting. Lots of outdoor seating. It's we're hoping for good weather. It hasn't warmed up in Maine yet, but hopefully by a couple weeks from now we'll get some warm weather.
Because I think I saw you were like their first author presentation or book kind of like bookends presentation when they opened.
Oh, I was when
Yeah.
Fiction opened. Yeah, we did a lovely conversation there. The owner, Tony, had me in conversation and she asked such great questions about the hidden life of Cecily Larson. And she had really gone all out and made circus themed treats, including
Oh, cotton
homemade
candy.
cotton candy. Yeah, it was amazing. So I'm super glad that we get to do this party together now, and I'm really grateful to her for being there to sell books. So,
Yeah, so definitely if go out and support your local indie bookstore and buy the book. If you don't have one close to you, you can always call or get online and order from Fiction Bookshop. Or
yes.
there's a bookshop.org. There's a website where you can put in the indie bookstore that you want to buy a book from, and it'll go towards them. So you can put in Fiction Bookshop.
Yeah.
So we want to shout them out too.
Yeah, and actually, that's a good thing to tell people too, is if you want to order through Fiction Bookshop, you can call or email directly. The information's on my website, and I can sign and personalize the book for you, and she'll ship it out. So we're doing that the night of the opening as well. So if anyone wants a signed personalized copy, that's how to do that.
So everybody mark your calendars, June 7th,
Yeah.
for the release of Summerland Cove. Let me hold it. Summerland Cove. Um, there you go. So everybody mark your calendars and be watching social media for pictures from the book launch. And then I assume you'll post when you get the book club guide up on the website so people can go there for the recipes for these wonderful items that we just talked
Yes.
about and discussion questions and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, my Instagram is Ellen Baker Novels. So people can find all that good stuff there and links to my website, which is also ellenbakernovels.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for
Okay.
joining us today. I
Oh,
so enjoyed our
thank
discussion on
you.
Summerland Cove, and I'm so excited for it to come out very soon.
Oh, thank you so much, Erin. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, Ellen.